Interactive website calculators can help you both increase your leads and also the trust that you have with your clients. And so what Calculator Studio can do is it can take an existing spreadsheet that you have that might look something like this, that's really difficult for a client to understand what's going on and to be able to interact with the data, and we can turn it into something that has an interactive layer that would look like this. So for instance, this is a solar energy calculator. So a client could come in and be able to change and interact with the different variables in your calculator, select different things, show them things like savings by working with your company or your products or services. And then I'm also going to show you how you can turn this into a form so that clients can actually submit their data, send it to you, and then you can increase leads that way. So to get started in your Calculator Studio dashboard, you want to go on the left-hand side over to examples. We're going to scroll down and use the Solar Energy ROI calculator. Now we can click Use Template here, and we're going to do like a build along here. So we're going to use this template so that we can take the data inside of this, and I'll show you how to build right on top of it here in Calculator Studio. So what we can see here is the interface, and then also the grid sheet that's connected. So we can click on it and drag this up to see all of the underlying calculations and data that's driving this website calculator. Now for your own data, you can use either the grid sheet, which functions just like a Google Sheet, or you can add your own spreadsheet, things like Excel or Google Sheets. You can also connect it to other databases for things like Notion, Airtable, and Smartsheet. So I'll go ahead and exit out of this. Now what we first want to do is, since we're doing a build along here, we're going to go ahead and delete all of this. So I'm going to press Command A or Control A on Windows. And then I'm just going to delete everything so we have a blank slate, but we also have our data underneath right here. So this is going to be our foundation for building this. Now we're first going to start building all of the foundations of our sheet here. Now there's a couple different ways that you can add elements in Calculator Studio. You can just click over here to search through all of these different elements. You can also click things like Design to see the Design tab here on the right. You can even look at layout for columns or containers, and forms are here as well, which we'll get to in just a little bit. Now, what I like to do is I like to use the slash command. So if we type in slash, we'll actually be able to type in the type of element that we want to use. And this is a really fast way to use Calculator Studio as you get going instead of having to search through different menus. So we're going to use slash commands throughout this. It's going to turn you into a power user extremely quickly. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add in a header here. So I'm going to go ahead and click or type slash and then put in layout element. So layout element is actually going to give us a column. Now we can turn this into a container by just deleting one of the columns. So if I click delete right here, now I have one single column layout. Okay, so next I want to go ahead and give this column a little bit of some color here. So I'll click edit right here at the top right. In background color, we can use this color picker to really choose whatever color we want. I'm going to go ahead and paste in a hex code here. Okay, perfect. So now that you've chosen the color here, we're going to put in a heading. So what we can do is actually add in different heading elements by using Markdown. So I'm going to put in 3 number or pound signs and click space. And now that's going to give me bold text. So I'm going to put in how much will I save by changing to solar. Okay, perfect. So what you can also do is you can highlight this text and change. You know, maybe you want it to be a heading 1 or heading 2. Whatever you'd like to be in here. You can also change the color of this if you'd like. And we're going to align this to the center text alignment. Okay. So next what we want to do is we want to add in 2 column layouts beneath this. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to type slash and then layout element. And now that gave us 2 columns for us to be able to use. Now in the top left, what I first want to do is input the average monthly electrical bill. So to do this, again, we're going to use that slash command. And now I'm going to type in slider. So slider is one of the best tools for people to be able to interact with your spreadsheet here. So we have the slider element, but we need to first input what the target cell is going to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to show our spreadsheet. We're going to pull this up here. And in the sheet, I want to pull in the target cell I3. So I'm going to go over here, I3, and enter that in, and I'll click continue. Okay, so we have the target cell. Now we also want to add in a data label. So I'm going to say average monthly electrical bill. Okay, now with this slider, right, we can see the data that it's pulling from right now. It's just 100. You want to be able to give that slider a minimum and a maximum, and then also the increment that a user can choose through that, because we don't want them just randomly putting in, for instance, let's say 50.3. Maybe we want a round number, or we want increments of 5. So first, let's start with the minimum. What's the lowest amount that a user could put in here? This is where you can add in data validation that normally on something like a Google Sheet or an Excel document, data validation can be really frustrating and annoying for users because they might try to input something and you can protect the sheet, but it gives them a pop-up that really can be frustrating for people to use. So for the minimum here, we're going to say 10, and the maximum, we're just going to put in 750. Okay. Now these, again, just an example here that we're just going to run with this sheet. Of course, you can tailor this to your custom data. For the step, we're going to put in 5. So what you'll notice here is we can see the number that's being selected, and a couple things happen when we change this. We see 95 here. It also changed the underlying spreadsheet as well. Now, what's nice about Calculator Studio is when someone is using this on your website, they're not going to be changing the underlying spreadsheet. So if someone else uses this calculator, it's not going to change for another user. 1,000 people can be using the calculator at once and be able to see their own data that they're inputting and not affect each other. So we can see the minimum goes all the way down to 10, the maximum goes all the way to 750, and you can see that a user has to land on increments of 5. If we change the step to something like 50, we can see that these become a lot more rigid, and the user can only change in increments of 50 here. Okay, so let's bring this back down to 5. You can also customize a couple of different other things like the width and the size of this as well. So the width, what we're going to change this to is extra large because we want it to fill up most of this column here. And then the size, we're going to choose as small. Now on the right side, let's add in another slider here. Again, we're going to type in slash and type in slider, and we see this element comes up. Same thing, we need to include the target cell here. So we're going to include G3. So look down on our spreadsheet here as G3, we'll hit continue. For the label, we're going to type in the house size, and we'll put in square feet here as well. Now for the minimum, maximum, and step, you can see that grade out in here, it says auto. So we can actually let Grid change this if we want to and put in their own auto suggestions based on those numbers, or you can add your own. So if you want to, you can keep that here, and Grid's going to try to figure out what's going to be best for that type of data. Now we'll scroll down through here. Width, again, we'll make extra large, and then the size will be small. And so size is really mainly going to change the height of that element here. Now, right now, these sliders are really great, right? We can see the exact number that's pulling in, but maybe we want it to be a little bit more clear on what do these numbers mean. For instance, 225, is that dollars, for instance? So what we can do with this element right here is we can go down to data options at the bottom right. And then in the number format, we can change this to currency. So maybe we want to do currency in US dollars. Okay, now for the house size, let's do something a little bit more custom here. So if we go down here in the bottom right, data options, well, number format, it doesn't really exist for us to put in, square foot isn't a, it's more of a custom thing. So what we'll do is click this FX button. So this is the formula mode. And we're going to put in our own custom formula for how we want Calculator Studio to show this type of number. So what we can do is use the pound sign. And so pound is basically like a variable for Calculator Studio to put in the real number. So think of it like an example number is what the pound is. So we're going to say, okay, we want there to be a number, and then we want a comma if it's in the thousands. Then we'll put in 3 or 2 more. We'll put a 0. Basically what this means is it's going to show the zeros and not chop them off. And then we'll put a space, and in quotations, we'll put feet. Okay, so this quick little formula here is telling Calculator Studio how to show this number. And then if you need more help with customization of your own types of number formats, you can click Excel documentation right here, and it will pull up the formulas for how you can actually format different types of numbers. Okay, now let's move on. Let's add a couple more selections to our sheet here. Underneath the average monthly electrical bill, what we want to do is we want to include a radio selection. So again, we're going to put in our slash command, and I'm going to type in a radio. So we want radio buttons. Now for our target cell, this is going to be what is going to change when a user clicks on one of these radio buttons. So for the target cell in this sheet, we're going to do B2. So we can either come and click B2, or you can type B2 right up here, and we'll click continue. Now for our label, we want to put in roof material. Now we also have options and option labels. So option labels, let's start with that. Option labels are what are being shown to the user, and options are what are actually input into the spreadsheet. So for instance, on our spreadsheet down here, you can see in B2, well, what we actually want is we want one of these numbers, 1, 2, 3, or 4. But these correspond to the different types of roofing materials. So we want the user to see the roofing materials because they don't know what the numbers mean, but we want our calculator, our actual spreadsheet, to use the numbers because that's how the calculator understands it. So we're first going to put in the options. These are what the Calculator Studio is going to understand in the spreadsheet. So I'm going to select all of these, and then the option label, we're going to select to the left of it. So what you'll see happens when I click, for instance, metal, it's going to put number 2 in B2, right? It's corresponding this column with this column right here, the option labels with the actual options that are being put in the spreadsheet. All right, so now let's do this with the roof steepness. We'll do this on the right-hand side. Okay, well, we're gonna type enter to put this in here. And what I can see is I actually didn't put the roof materials inside of this column. So all we have to do is simply just take this element and drag it up into this other column here. So I'll drag it right there. Okay, so now on the right side, we can do the same thing. We'll use the slash command and type in radio. Same thing, we need the target cell here. So we're gonna use target cell E2. All right, same thing, we're gonna put in a label. So we're gonna say roof steepness. For our options here, we're going to use E3 to E5. So right here. Then for our option labels, we'll do D3 to D5. Okay. So again, we can see right here in cell E2, if we click something like steep, it inputs 3. It's looking exactly at the options that are being input in the spreadsheet, and then the option labels are what the user is going to see. Now, what we can also do is we can take these radio buttons, and they don't have to exist in this format. We can actually kind of include them in a paragraph format. So let's click down here, and I'm going to just simply type, do you want to buy a battery? Okay, so we want the user to be able to say yes or no. So even inside of this paragraph, I can use that slash command and then put in a radio button. So for this target cell, I'm going to put in L2. All right, I don't need a label here because that paragraph is already that label for us asking that question. For the options, we want L3 and L4, so I'll put those in here. And then for the option labels, we want just to the left of it. Now you can see this is formatted a little bit strange. So what we can do instead is we can say, we want this either vertically as a row or we want it to flow with text. So flow with text is exactly what we want because it's actually going to fall in line with that paragraph or the sentence that you have before it. Okay, now let's give the user some bit of some output data as well. So these are all of our inputs. Now beneath this, let's add in another layout element. We want 2 columns here. So on the left-hand side, we're going to give a little bit of text data, and on the right-hand side, we'll show some graphs. So first, I want to show the user the installation cost. Okay, so we'll type in installation cost here. Now, I want to display a value right here. So what you can do is actually you can type in the equal sign. And what that will do is it allows us to input a formula output element. So we could do the same thing with a slash, right? I could slash and then type in formula output. They both work exactly the same, but if you want to be a little bit quicker, you just type in equals, okay? And we can see we have the formula output element listed right here. So for this formula output, we want F8. So F8 is going to be the installation cost for our user here. Now I can click out of this to show the data. Now we need to customize this a little bit more. First of all, we want to turn this into US currency. So under the number format, I'll click currency in US dollars. Maybe we also want to highlight this a little bit more. We want to make it bold. So we can go down here and click on the bold button. And now we have the installation cost is shown very clearly to the user. Okay, and underneath that, we want to put in the payback period. So I'll just click enter. Actually, what we can also do here is if you hold down shift and then put enter, it will put a line really close to that first line. So I can say the payback period. So just to show that difference here really quickly, if I just click enter, it spaces those out. However, if I put hold down shift and then enter, it makes those closer. So I can say payback period here. So for the payback period, what I want to include is F11. So I'm going to type enter. I'll put in F11 and click continue. Okay, so we see that number here, 5.74. All right, so what I want to do here is I want to go ahead and make this bold. And then what you can do at the end of it is you can also just simply type afterwards. So I can say 5.74 years. And I'm also going to make this bold as well. I can just highlight this text and just simply click the bold button. Next, we're going to include a bar chart. So I'll make a space beneath this. Again, / command, and we're going to put in a bar chart. So we're going to first select this data. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to F9 through F10. So we'll include F9 and F10 here and click continue. Now there's quite a bit of formatting that we need to make this a little bit nicer and easier to understand. So first, what we're going to do with the chart title, that's the easiest to start with, is we'll put in the yearly electrical bill. Perfect. Okay. So then what we next want to do is I want to include some y-axis labels. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this. One, you can see what we have before solar and after solar. We can use those labels right from our sheet. What you can also do is, let's say maybe the sheet has a little bit more of a complex explanation of what's in here, and you want to make something more user-friendly. Well, we can actually surround this in brackets and basically create a custom array for the sheet here. So we can say before solar in quotes here, and then comma, and then after solar. So these both will function exactly the same. We're basically making a custom array here instead of using the sheet if you need to do that to make your sheet a little bit more user-friendly. So as we scroll down through here, we have tons of different options for the x-axis. We're going to go ahead and change the number format into US dollars. Okay, then we're going to look at the y-axis. Tons of options. Again, you can customize here. We're going to leave this alone currently. Then we can go ahead and customize things like the colors. So we can go ahead and actually input a custom set of colors here. So maybe what I want to do is before solar, I make this something like red, and then after solar, I turn it to something like green. Now you can see these didn't change, so we need to click on color by point. And so what this is going to do is it varies the color by the point rather than the series in your data set. Now I'm going to change this away from a little bit of that neon green into something a little bit more, a little nicer to look at here. And this is a really nice way too that you can add in your own brand colors if you wanted to. You can even click through here to put in a hex code if you want to make this a little bit nicer. Now, right now, this doesn't show the data in the way quite like we want it, right? After is coming before the before solar. So we want to flip those around. And so the way we do that is we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom to the sort order of this data. So what we want to do is turn this to descending so that before is on top, then after is beneath that, and it makes a lot more sense. Now, another thing that you might want to do, you can see, when a user hovers over this, they're going to see this data here. Now, there's a couple different issues right now. Is one, a user has to hover to see that information, but then also it's not formatted correctly. So I can turn this again to US dollars so we can see that here. But then I also want to see the numbers listed on the chart. So I'm going to scroll up, show data labels, I want to turn this on to either all or when they fit. It's really your choice here, but I like all. I like to be able to see those numbers here, and I like users to be able to instantly see it without having to hover over it. So I personally like keeping this on all, but sometimes when they fit makes sense if maybe you have a big chart that's going to be viewed maybe on mobile, for instance, and then you don't want all of that information cluttering up the screen. Okay, next let's add a line chart to the right. Again, /command, and we're going to type in line. So for our data here, we want H9 through AA10. So what you can do, again, you can type that in if you want to, or just simply select on your sheet. So I'll put this in here. So we have this, and again, we have some formatting work that we need to do. For our x-axis labels, what we're going to do is we're going to use H8 through AA8. So we have H8 here all the way through the end. So again, I'm just going to type that in, H8 through AA8. It's going to make that a little bit easier to use. And then for the chart title, I'm going to put in the total electrical cost next 20 years. Perfect. For the legend, what we can do is use G9 and G10. So we're going to come over here, G9 and 10. And again, if you want more user-friendly ones that aren't in your sheet, you can create that custom array like we did before. Okay, so for our x-axis options, on the x-axis, I want to show people that this is the year. So that's listed right here below, so they know what they're looking at. Then we'll go to our y-axis. We're just going to leave this exactly the way it is here. Then we get to go to our color palette. So I'm going to turn this into custom again. And you can see it's actually including our custom palette for the sheet already, which is perfect for us. Okay, so now let's add a quick annotation here. So right beneath this, I just want to add in a quick little annotation to show the user maybe what assumptions that we're making here. So we're going to use a formula output because I want this text to be pretty small. So in here, in a formula output, when we want to show text, we surround it in quotes. So I'm just going to put in a little star and say calculated with a 4% inflation. Okay, and I'll click continue here. And we can select off of this for this to go ahead and show up here. Now, it's way too big right now. So if we scroll all the way to the bottom, we can change this font size to 12, all right? So everything else here looks good to me. I just want to go ahead and align this to the right. So now we have this nice little annotation here. So far we've done a lot of work. We have inputs that a user can use. They can go and click through here and see different results that are going to show up. Now, right away, I can spot an issue here. We can see there's a pretty, there's no rounding happening with the payback period. So what I can do is come over here and I can change this. The number format, instead of default, I can simply just turn it into a number. So it's just going to round that number to make it a little bit easier to see. Okay, so let's add in one more quick section at the very end. So we're just going to say over the next 20 years, you would save. I'm just going to leave this blank for right now. I'm just going to put X, save X by switching to solar. Okay, so in this X piece, I'll just remove that and click or type enter or equals. Then in the data, we can actually input a formula right inside here because again, this is formula output. It doesn't have to be just one cell in the sheet. We can actually include formulas right inside of the data. So what we're going to do, I'm going to scroll over here to AA. So I want AA9 minus AA10. So I'll look down here. And I want AA9 minus AA10. And Calculator Studio will actually put in that calculation for us right here. So we have this as well. Again, we need to change the number format to currency in US dollars. Maybe we want this to stand out by making it bold and giving it a green color right here. So from here, what we might want to do as well is give a user the option to show this and display this as a PDF. So to save this as a PDF, let's make a new line. We're going to do slash, and we're going to put in or type in PDF. So save to PDF. What it does is it puts in this element type called an action button. So there's different types of action buttons. Save to PDF is what we want here. So you can change the label here if you want. Anything goes in here. Save to PDF, I think, is the most straightforward and makes the most sense here. So what this is going to allow the user to do is if we click view and click Save to PDF, it's going to open this up as a PDF export. So then they can, save this on their desktop. They could also print it out if they wanted to. So we can see the sheet right here as a PDF, which is great. Now, what if when they turn this into a PDF, maybe you want to add some disclosures here, or maybe contact info for your company right at the bottom? That's going to be perfect. So again, we see all the user inputs, the outputs, but maybe we want some extra information here that only shows up when the user turns this into a PDF. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to click Edit again. We'll scroll down and we're going to make a container. And remember, the way we make a container is a layout element. And we're just going to delete one of the columns. So now we have this container here. So maybe on the PDF, I want it to show some quick company information. So maybe I just say this is Solar Company LLC. And then maybe we put in a phone number here for them to contact us at. So we want this to only show up when the user clicks Save to PDF. The problem is right now, if it's embedded on your site, it's going to show up. And we don't want that to happen. So what we're going to do is click Edit here, and you can see column visibility, right? We can turn this to visible, hidden. What we actually want to do is create a custom formula here. So Calculator Studio has a really smart functionality here that's only exclusive to Calculator Studio and not in something like Google Sheets. So what we can do here is we're going to type in the equals sign, and we're going to type in isPrint. Okay, so isPrint. So we can see grid.isPrint. So it checks if the content is currently being printed. So all we have to do is just put that right in here. And it's simply saying, okay, well, if grid isPrint is true, then that makes the column visibility true. And if it's false, so if it's not being printed, then the visibility is false. So we can see these little check lines right here. That means this is actually going to be hidden from the user when they view it. So even though we can edit it, we can see it in the edit view, someone cannot see it in the normal view. So for instance, we click view, all of that company information is gone. It doesn't exist right here. But if I click Save to PDF, what's going to happen is we'll be able to actually see that company information listed on the PDF. So right here. But again, that was hidden before on the normal view. So then finally, let's go ahead and add in a form for someone to go ahead and reach out to us. So maybe let's go ahead and add in a section, and I'm going to put in 2 pound signs here, and maybe we say something like ready to get started, something like that. Okay, then what I want to do is add in a form. So click Form. From here, we can build a form and customize anything that we want the user to input for us. So maybe one of the things we want to include is, of course, we want first name, last name, email. Maybe we also want the street address because they're looking at solar. Maybe we want to look at the address that they're looking at. And so you can always click Edit here, and you can customize the field. So maybe street address for solar installation. Okay, so we'll update that field. And we'll click Build Form. So now we have first name, last name, email, street address for solar installation, and submit. So when I click on submit here, there's a couple different things that we can do. Maybe we do get started. Works for us. So then we can select, well, what actually is going to happen when a user clicks this? So we can say, we can put in the email subject line. So maybe you want this to go to your sales team. So I might just put sales at company.com, or obviously your real email. In subject, I can say new solar lead. Now what you can also do here is you can connect your HubSpot account to send that actually directly to HubSpot. You can also connect this to Zapier as well. And then we see all the form fields that are being sent over to your email, or that would be sent to HubSpot or Zapier, which of course you can connect to unlimited amount of things here. And then if you want to as well, you can always customize this form to be a little bit more in-depth to your branding. Maybe you have more circular pill type buttons or more square type buttons. Of course, you get to do tons of different customizing here with this if you would like to. So let's go ahead and view our sheet here. So we can see, again, we have all these inputs that are validated. And what's really cool about this compared to normal spreadsheets is you can see how, these charts change change, for instance, as I move sliders around, people get to visualize data and actually see how it impacts them in really cool ways that are normally in a spreadsheet that you would give to somebody. Not only is it clunky and not super professional, but you'd have to keep typing in one by one to look at these different scenarios, where a client doesn't even have to download a single thing. They don't have to create an account. This can be hosted on your website as an embed, and they can be able to explore all this in a really cool way and get actual information back from your company without having to spend the time to contact somebody. And then when they are ready to contact you, right, they can take a look at, okay, here's what my savings might look like. They can save that to a PDF if they wanted to. Or when they're ready to get started, they can fill their information, click get started, and that will send an email to you or your sales team, or send it to HubSpot, Zapier, or whatever you would like. So get started with Calculator Studio. There are a million things that you can do with it. Again, to increase leads, even for things like internal tools, or just increasing the trust that you have with your clients.